Welcome to another episode of the Fancy Scientist podcast. Today, I am talking about what you need to become to be a successful wildlife professional. Normally, when people think about things like that, like what do I need to become a success in this field? A lot of times they will think about the experience they need, or if they should get GIS certification, or learning R really well. And those things are important, well, depending on the kind of job you want. But what is most important that will supersede all of those things, that will make those things possible for you, is when you have these things I'm going to talk about today. These things are available to any one of us, and it's about the attitude that you have, and it's about who you need to become at the core level of being a person, which again is available to every single one of us. I was not innately like this. These are skills that I had to learn, mindset, ways of thinking that I had to literally change the way that I think to become this way. And these are what make people successful in this field. When I work with students and they get permanent jobs, these are the types of attitudes that they have. And this is what I teach in the Successful Wildlife Professional program. And if you are not interested in wildlife careers, don't worry. These skills, these ways of being are going to help you in your career, or if you are working on environmental issues, on conservation issues, if you already have a job in wildlife biology, or if you're just somebody who is looking to make a difference in the world, and for some reason you can't have a job in wildlife, or you don't want a job in wildlife, but you still want to make a difference, these are still going to apply to you. So stay tuned and let's get into it. I am so excited for today's episode. The reason I wanted to make today's episode is because this field is not easy. And that doesn't mean it's not doable. I am here to empower you and help you navigate this field. That's exactly why I do this podcast and create other resources for you, because I've gone through it. I've been in this field now for 20 years. I know what it's like. I know what the different career types are, the different workplaces. I've seen and know people well who work at all different levels. And when I was on the job market, I was really surprised by how competitive it is. So if this is the career you really want, you can absolutely get it, but it's not easy. And because it's not easy, you're going to need to develop the right way of thinking to make yourself successful. When we talk about what it takes to be a success in this field, a lot of people are thinking like, oh, I need literature skills, or I need GIS skills. Yes, but really the foundation of everything is how you think about things and how you approach things. And I wanted to create this episode because so often people give up on themselves, or they come across a roadblock and they immediately think, I can't. They shut down. And I have experienced it over and over and over again. I have a Facebook group called Getting a Job in Wildlife Biology. It's based off of my book. And I send a message to every single person who joins the group asking them what they're struggling with. They talk to me about it. And so often when I talk to them about their struggles, I will provide solutions for them. I have so many resources out there. But when I follow up with them, there's often reasons why they haven't done the thing that I've asked them to do. A lot of times it's because of time. That's a really big factor. People will be like, oh, I just didn't have the time to get to it. I haven't done it. And I'm the one following up with them. Well, let me tell you, if this is the career for you, you've got to make it happen. So let's just get started and go into the list, go into the different things that you need to have to make this career work for you. These are things that anyone can develop. I did not have this attitude growing up. I did not even have this attitude 10 years ago. I really started working deeply on my mindset probably about 7 to 8 years ago, and I have changed so much. This stuff works. Trust me. Working on reframing the way that you think and choosing your thoughts work. I'm going to get real vulnerable with you. I am somebody who, from depression, I have actually been on antidepressants, or now I'm on one antidepressant, but I have been on them since I think about 2007. And I did have some before that when I went off of them. So I have always been medicated for depression and anxiety. And with this kind of mindset work, I was on actually 2 antidepressants just as recently as last year. I'm now only on one, and this is the one I've been on since about 2007, 2008. And am now at the point where I've reduced the dosage to almost half. I'm working to getting off of them completely, and I feel so good. I am so happy, so grateful. I feel great about my life. I don't feel any withdrawals. I don't feel any problems that I was feeling before. And for me, I really think so much had to do with how I chose my thoughts and my ways of thinking. And this is what I teach my students in the Successful Wildlife Professional, that you get to choose your thoughts. So let's get into it now. The mindset attitudes that are important for you to adopt to be successful in this career. Let's go. Okay. The first one is you really need to have this unstoppable mindset that you ensure your own success. I did a whole podcast episode about this. It will be linked in the show notes, and it's called that, You Ensure Your Own Success. And it's based on this podcast I listened to of Sarah Blakely, who's the founder of Spanx. It has nothing to do with being an inventor or starting your own business. It is the mindset you need to adapt. And she had an amazing mindset. She still does have this mindset, but she didn't let anything stop her. She got told no so many times by so many different people. And she really went above and beyond and thought creatively about ensuring her own success. So I highly encourage you to listen to the podcast episode that I did about it, which relates it to wildlife careers, and then also listen to the original episode. So I'll link to in the show notes, my podcast episode, and you'll receive the link to her podcast episode as well. But you really need this attitude that you're unstoppable, that no matter what happens, because you're probably going to get told no, or no, you will get told no. You're going to receive rejections. You're going to submit job applications, receive nothing. You're going to submit probably volunteer applications and receive nothing. And you're going to get discouraged. But you can't let that stuff get in the way. You have to go beyond it. You have to go above it. And you can't take no as an answer. If somebody says, like, here, I have this opportunity for you, this would really help you in your career, and you know it will help you. You've done the research and you've looked into it, but you're like, oh, I don't have the money or I don't have the time for it. No, you figure out how to make that happen for you. This is really the type of attitude that you need. You can't just sit back and roll over and expect things to happen to you. Unfortunately, it is so competitive that you need to be willing to give it your all, everything that you've got. So really have this ensure your own success / unstoppable mindset to become a successful wildlife professional. The second thing you need is you must be willing to invest your time and money into this career. Now, I know this sucks. I know that there are people in this field, actually, I would say by far most people in this field, who are not financially set up to just take a trip to Africa to get experience. And that's not what you need. If you listen to the podcast episode with Matt Snyder, I'll link that in the show notes as well. It could help some people, but it is not what you need. But you must be willing to invest some sort of time and money into your success. And let me explain. 2 podcast episodes ago, I talked about the salaries in this field and how they were misleading because they don't account for the volunteer work that you probably have to do. In very rare cases, you don't have to do it. But volunteer, this is why it's both a combination of time and money. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars in your wildlife career, but you do need to volunteer to get experience, because if you're expecting to just get a job after you graduate with no experience, with no volunteering, it's not going to happen. I don't know. I've never heard of it happening. All of the people that I've worked with, they've all volunteered in some sort of capacity. It's just the way that our field is right now. And we, as a field, I know people are out there working on making these changes, but unfortunately, the changes aren't made yet. So if you want to get a job, this is what you have to be willing to do. Now, this doesn't mean you need to volunteer full time. You don't need to quit your job and be volunteering all the time. There are lots of different ways about this. And I talk about this in my podcast, especially if you want to listen to the 7 tips to becoming a better wildlife biologist or biologist podcast. I'll put all these in the show notes. So just make sure you go to my website episode and you'll get all the links to these other podcast episodes. But you have to volunteer. You're going to have to donate your time, and time is money. So both of those are one of the same. And then you also have to donate your time in terms of, or investing your time in terms of be willing to put in the time to work on your career. So I created the job tracker. This is a spreadsheet for you to track the jobs out there, to learn what is important, what you want to do. Don't wait until you graduate. Don't wait till the end of your career to do this, because when this happens, you're going to miss out on key skills, requirements, experience, etc., that you're probably going to need for the jobs. This is what happened to me. Even though I have a PhD, I realized when I was applying for jobs that I missed out on some really important things that I needed for the jobs that I wanted. So, and take the time now to invest the time into making sure that you're prepared. And just the fact that you're listening to this podcast shows me you're the kind of person who's willing to do this, because you're listening to the podcast. This is exactly what you're doing right now. You are investing the time into yourself to do this. And it doesn't have to be hard. Do you have a commute? You can listen to my podcast on your way to work. And if you do decide to enroll in one of my programs, a lot of people say, oh, they don't have the time or the time is not right. No, like enroll now and get started as early as possible. And again, you can listen to the program while you're driving to work. Don't watch the program, but you can listen to it. Or listen to it when you're walking your dogs or folding your laundry. We have so much downtime in the day that we can be listening to something else to excel ourselves. Or even wake up a little bit earlier. If you could wake up 15 minutes earlier every day and just get to work and use your time efficiently, how much more could you be doing? Let me give you some other examples. I recently had the opportunity to talk to the CEO of the Wildlife Society, Ed Arnett, and he was talking about being a member of the Wildlife Society for decades. And that when he was younger, he went to his university and asked for advice of how to become a successful wildlife professional. And they told him to join the Wildlife Society. Like I said, most people in our field don't have tons of disposable income. He couldn't afford it. But you know what he did? He thought creatively, and he asked for it for a Christmas present. So he told me that, I think it was about 10 years, his mom paid for the Wildlife Society membership and bought it for him as a Christmas present every year. So again, don't rely on just this, like, no, I can't afford it. Somebody was posting in my Facebook group, should I do the Wildlife Society? Is it worth the money? And yes, you can do your research, but don't let the money be a factor. I'm not sure how much it costs, but let's say it's probably $100 a year. What can you do to make that money? Can you ask instead of presents that people give you, they give you this? Is there something you can sell? Is there like some old clothes, just stuff around the house, furniture? Even if it doesn't make a ton of money, there's like 5 things you could sell for $20 on Facebook Marketplace. Well, there's your membership. And then also I have a PDF that has 22 ways to make money. This is, anyone in the world can find a way to make money from this PDF. There's things you can do here in the United States. If you have a car, you can do Uber, DoorDash, things like that. You can babysit, you can pet sit. But there's also virtual assistant work. Did you know that you can get paid to actually try different foods or different companies and write reviews? This is all in this PDF of 22 ways to make money now. So be creative. You do not have to be born wealthy to be successful in this career. One of my colleagues in graduate school, he's super successful now. He actually had a paper route in graduate school. So we would go out drinking and he would have to leave early to go to his paper route. He still had fun with us, but he was like, I got to make money. And even though in graduate school we were paid a stipend, the Fisheries and Wildlife Department, they weren't paid that much. So yeah, he did the paper route. So he didn't let his ego, he didn't let anything get in the way of pursuing his dream. He woke up earlier and he went after it. And we did poke fun at him. We thought it was funny that he was a graduate student with a paper route, or a grown man with a paper route. But again, he didn't care. He just like rolled with the punches, and now he's out there killing it as a wildlife biologist. He's super successful, has tons of publications, and yeah, he does really cool work with camera traps and has amazing photos of animals from where he lives. So he's a really great success story. So don't let money get in the way. Don't let your ego get in the way. I worked with this one coach and she was like, I'm going to publish my book. I'm going to write my book. I'm going to publish my book. And I don't care if I have to drive Uber at night. I'm going to make it happen. So again, have that attitude. If there's a resource out there that is going to help you, that you know for sure that is going to help you, invest in yourself, invest in that resource. Whether it is a membership to a professional society like the Wildlife Society, or if you want to take one of my master classes or enroll in the Successful Wildlife Professional Program, when you invest in yourself, it pays off. You will learn how to do the things that will get you where you want. And then as you learn from my podcast, the earlier you can get that first salary, the better, because then you can use that to negotiate for the rest of your life. And in addition to doing things like maybe you need to work some side jobs to generate money to be able to do an experience you want, that's what Matt Snyder did. We talked about that in the podcast episode where we talked about volunteering abroad. But maybe it's also something that you feel like is beneath you. One of my lab mates would always talk about undergraduates having to wash dishes. So we worked in a lab, so this means like the dishes associated with the lab equipment, that you just have to be willing to do that. That's what everyone does starting out. And I felt the same way too, working with my undergrads. We had this one undergraduate who she was volunteering to help me in a project. At this point, I was doing surveys, I was doing research on students, and I collected the surveys on paper, and we had to transcribe them online. She did not see the point in doing this, even though I explained it to her, and she complained about it in front of myself and my boss and one of our lab meetings. And he also explained the importance to her, but she had a really bad attitude about it. And this was not something that was beneath me. I was doing these surveys too. We were doing them alongside each other. I was entering the data as well. But again, when you have this bad attitude, when you feel like something's beneath you, that is not going to take you far in this career. And people aren't going to want to work with you. They're not going to write you letters of recommendation. So nothing is beneath you. It's important work, and we're all doing it. Don't let your ego get in the way. It's really important to make sacrifices. Unfortunately, again, that's what it's going to take to make it in this field, whether that's sacrifices from waking up early to work on your career, to preparing ahead, to practicing for the interview, to making sure you're spending a lot of time working on your cover letters to get the job, to getting some skills that you might need, whether that is watching videos on data analysis or GIS to get those skills that you need to learn more. Or, like I said, sacrificing time so that you can become financially viable to make certain things happen for you. There's going to be sacrifices that you need to make temporarily in this field to get to where you want to go. That's the kind of attitude that successful wildlife professionals have. When talking about these issues, especially financial issues, I want to address a specific point. You might know some things about me, and you might be thinking, who are you to talk? You come from a certain financial background, you look a certain way, and I'm not going to shy away from that. I do come from a background where my family was supportive. Definitely weren't wealthy, but my parents were supportive of my career, and I did make some choices that a lot of other people wouldn't make. And in some regard, they were sacrifices, even though they were sacrifices in some ways that enabled me to do other things in my career. For example, I didn't go away to college. I stayed home with my parents. I didn't dorm or anything. And I chose the least expensive school that I got into. I understand times were different, so the prices and tuition have gone up. But I received a scholarship and I had very, very little to pay for college when I stayed home with my parents. And again, I understand there's a lot of privilege that comes with being able to stay at home with your parents. But the advice that I'm giving you today, like I said, this isn't stuff that I just came with. I actually learned a lot of this advice from one of the coaches I worked with, because now that I'm a small business owner, I had to learn how to run a business. And I invested a lot in classes and courses and in coaching from people who were digital entrepreneurs to teach me. So I invested in this coach, and she actually was the person who taught me a lot of these concepts. And she is an immigrant. She's from Venezuela. She started her own business, which was very successful. She made 6 figures in her business. She was a single mother. She told me often she was going through this contentious divorce where she was frequently getting invoices for her divorce, which would cost sometimes upwards of tens of thousands of dollars at a time. But she talked to me about stories, and that there are certain stories that we tell ourselves about why we can and can't do things. And she refused to tell herself the story that she couldn't do things because of her background. And in fact, one of my biggest lessons from her that she taught me was that she was considering joining a coaching program. And one of the things she loved about this coach that she was going to work with is that the coaching program was an investment. I think it was $3,000. And he did not look down on her at all for her background as a single mom coming from another country. He said, it's $3,000. That's the price. I trust that you can get the money. Like basically, like you're a competent, capable woman. You can do it. He gave her that attitude. And she really appreciated that, rather than him feeling sorry for her or feeling that she couldn't do it. So she took on that empowerment, that capability, that confidence, and she raised the money and she did it. So really the advice I'm giving you today about finances, again, this is not stuff that I learned. In college, I didn't go away to school. I watched all my friends go away to school, live their college dreams, live in the dorms, meet so many friends. I didn't really make friends in college. I had a couple of people that I studied with, but I worked during school. I didn't party. I didn't even drink until I was 21. I worked at Starbucks. I put my nose in the books and I worked hard. And it really wasn't until afterward that I got to have more experiences. When I went to graduate school, I felt like I had more of a college experience. So the advice I'm giving you today, a lot of it comes from her. And in talking with her about my program, she was helping me build my business, and we were talking about my programs and getting students to enroll and invest in themselves. And I would tell her, my students say they can't, or my potential students say that they can't afford this. And she would be like, well, what is so bad about their situation that they can't get the money to invest in themselves? And even though she was running a company that brought in over 6 figures and she was making that salary, she was still out there getting money in other ways. Like she actually did Rover, which is a pet sitting service here in the United States. It might be here in other countries as well, where you can sign up to be a pet sitter. And she had people just drop off dogs at her house and she would watch them. And she said she made $1,000 a month doing stuff like that. So again, ask yourself, what is so bad about your situation that you can't do the Uber, can't do the Rover, can't do the paper route? Is it that your situation really is bad? And granted, there are situations that are really bad. There are people out there. And I do have scholarships for my programs to enable people whose situations really are preventing them, because I really do want to empower people to be conservation professionals, especially from other countries. If you've seen my podcast episode with Chitra, she comes from Nepal. And her dream was to be in a master's program in the United States so that she could work on turtle conservation for the rest of her life. And through a scholarship in my program, we did that. She put in the hard work and we worked on revising her cover letters, her CV, and she is now in a master's program here in Illinois. So I'm so happy, and I know she's going to be a lifelong conservationist, passing that on to her students in the field when she becomes established. So yes, I do provide scholarships, but again, look at yourself. What is so bad about your situation? This is coming from a woman who was an immigrant from Venezuela, who was a single mom going through a contentious divorce. She had kids. She had to split her time between running her business and taking care of her children, and she made it work. So this is the type of attitude you need to become a successful wildlife professional, to become a success in this field. This unstoppable attitude that no matter what happens, no matter what gets in your way, you can do it. Believe in yourself, and I believe in you. I genuinely believe that this field is for anyone as long as you are willing to put in the work, have the mindset. That's really what it takes. Because once you have those things that you're unstoppable, you will figure out a way to network or get into one of my classes, get into my networking for introverts master classes, and get the tools to network. You will figure out the way to get the GIS skills, to get the skills that you need to get the job. So again, this isn't coming from me. A lot of this comes from one of my best coaches, and I'm so grateful for these lessons that she has passed down on to me that I can pass on to you as well. You have to be willing to go after creative solutions and think outside the box. One example of this is from my interview with Scott Putnam. He's a fisheries biologist of 30 years, and he talked about a student who introduced themselves at, it was either a conference or a networking event, and he had a business card. And his business card, it said student on it, or it said like prospective fisheries biologist, something like that. But it really took Scott's attention and showed him that he was willing to think outside of the box, be creative, and get the attention of people who are hiring the work. I love this person, Jocko Willink. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And I first heard of him from the Tim Ferriss podcast. And he has this attitude of good. He worked as a Navy SEAL, so he comes from a military background, and he had this attitude of good, that no matter what would happen, he would use the phrase good. Like say the food wasn't delivered on time, good. We're going to learn how to ration our food. This is going to prepare us for hard times. We didn't get the money we wanted, good. That's going to teach us how to budget properly. Everything can be spun into a good thing. So when something bad happens to you, what is the good that you could take from it? Good. This is going to make me better in this way, XYZ. So use that attitude. And again, don't use this attitude of like, I can't. Like, think creatively. Like, the good, this happened to me. Okay, how can I make what I want to happen still happen? Go to the How to Become a Better Biologist podcast episode, where I talk about using community science as a way to get volunteer experience. You don't have to be accepted by an official organization. You can create your own experiences. These can legitimately be put on your resume and count as experience. You have to have this attitude that you can make things happen. Like, I didn't get the volunteer opportunity at Audubon. Good. I will learn how to create my own opportunity for volunteering doing the eBird program. I will do it on my own. That's the kind of attitude you want to have. The next one is you really want to be able to soak up as much knowledge as possible from the people around you. So always be willing to learn. Always be willing to be a sponge. You're not necessarily going to take the advice from everybody, but you want to learn from everyone. Everyone is valuable, whether you're working with them directly or not, and take advantage of every opportunity you have. When I was at Disney World, I was super interested in working with elephants. And my project, for the most part, didn't directly have to do with elephants. Like, yes, I would run the hormone samples of the pregnant elephants to determine they were still pregnant or not. But I was in the lab doing the hormones. I wasn't interacting with the elephants at all. but I befriended a scientist in our lab who studied elephant vocalizations. And that project was done, but he knew that I wanted to work on elephants, and he invited me to collect vocalizations of alligators, which, has nothing to do with elephants. But still, we went to Gatorland, which was about an hour drive, and I took that opportunity to learn everything from him I could. We talked in the car. I asked him extensively about elephants. When we were with the alligators, I learned about how to conduct the research. And again, it was about gators, but everything could still be applied to elephants. And during the car, I asked about elephant specific experiences. So there was always an opportunity to learn. So always maximize those opportunities, ask questions, and be willing to learn from everyone. Even if you don't think they're going to help you right away. Maybe they are working as a janitor for an organization you really want to work for, a museum you want to work for, or a zoo you want to work for. They are still valuable, even though it's not necessarily the kind of work you want to do. They're still working for an organization that you want to work for. There is so much information that is valuable there, and treat them with the respect and admiration that they deserve. Now we are on our final points of what it takes to become a successful wildlife professional in this field. And this is a little bit of what I talked about in the last episode of the podcast. You want to be 100% responsible for your results. Yes, I understand things happen. You will get rejected. Things won't work out for you. But what was your role in making those things happen? And I get it. Like, I applied for a job where I was perfect for the job, but I lost out to somebody who had 10 years of experience on me. So I don't want you to look at this to be like, okay, how am I responsible for not having an additional 10 years of experience than this person? But still, you want to reflect on yourself and being like, where am I not being responsible? Am I really doing everything it takes to get a job? Like, when I first moved to North Carolina, and actually a lot in North Carolina, was I really networking with like everyone I could while I was there? No, I wasn't going on LinkedIn and creating connections. I wasn't meeting people from the organizations that I wanted to work with. I could have easily connected with people at the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Rather than just waiting for jobs to appear, I could have connected with them, asked to go to lunch with them, talked to them, networked with them. And then when jobs became available, then I would have been there. This is just to use this as an example. I wasn't giving it my all. So think creatively, think outside the box, and really take 100% responsibility. Are you really doing everything possible to succeed in your career at this moment? I really want you to ask yourself this. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Make sure to turn your notifications on for new podcasts and subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes with valuable information. Make sure you sign up for the Becoming a Wildlife Professional free webinar series that is coming up on August 6th. I am so excited to talk to you guys about this. And if you like this episode, please share it with others. Spread these messages so that we can empower our community of wildlife professionals and get people to be working effectively. Because again, once you have the job, it's not that the work is over. You're going to come across major obstacles in trying to pass legislative action that we want to have, trying to get people to take action on certain initiatives, trying to get people to care about certain things that we have going on in the world. So these are principles that apply to you even beyond getting a job. They apply to your daily life. They apply to anything you're trying to accomplish in this realm of wildlife conservation, nature conservation, and getting people to care. Thank you guys so much. Have an amazing day. Be kind to wildlife, be kind to animals, and be kind to each other. I really appreciate you for being here, and thank you so much.